So I pretty much handle most immigration except employment and investment. I had started to kind of take on a little bit more of those cases back in 2016. But if you will recall, in 2016, there was an election that really changed the trajectory of my practice. In 2017, we were getting a massive amount of calls for individuals that were getting arrested as collateral effects, that were getting picked up on random raids, that were, just being torn apart from their families. And so we quickly had to reshift our focus in something that I had already been doing, just not on a grand scale, but deportation defense. So we get a lot of clients who get a lot of racism from their tenants. So yeah, everywhere in school, children receive a lot of bullying from their classmates about, and especially during the 2016, 2017 years, we got a lot of complaints. We had a lot of kids that were having to go to therapy because of the level of bullying that they were experiencing as a result of their parents being immigrants. And, they have Hispanic last names, Lopez, Sanchez, Martinez. And so it's, it's not, you can't really hide that. And so we did experience a lot of that.
School year 2016, 2017. Someone had to do a racist drawing at the library study room at UNF, where it pointed out Latinos, African Americans, Asians getting back on a boat to go home, to go back to wherever they came from. And there was a big writing on the board, "Make America White Again." And it really struck a lot of feelings with a lot of students, especially myself. So when the three cultural clubs, the Black Student Union, the Asian Students in Alliance, and the Latin American Student Organization, we had our bi-weekly meetings, I said, like, hey, this happened. What are we going to do about this? Because, people are going to look at us for an example. And with the other presidents, we organized a town hall where President Delaney, the president of the university at the time, attended. A lot of students, a lot of people that weren't even involved with the university, that they just wanted to get their opinions heard and hear other people's student opinions. But I did see the drawing. It was very gruesome. It struck a lot of nerves and a lot of feelings. But, it was the reality that we were living in, a sad reality that those things were happening. But it did made me, question what I had done that year as president of LASO, because I was on a mission to educate people about our culture. And I felt at that time maybe I hadn't done enough. But sometimes you can work as much as you want, and sometimes to some people it just won't make a difference. So if they close the door on learning or educating themselves, there's only so much you can do. A student can only learn when he's willing to learn.
One of the things that was happening back then is that there was a lawsuit for discrimination between the NAACP and the school board. Okay, and the way that the school board behaved, was just black and white. They could care less, Native Americans, Hispanics, Indians, or whatever. And when George took his problems, of discrimination to the school board, they said, we don't recognize it. We haven't got that data, and plus you don't count anyway, because what we have to meet is that we have to meet the black imposed requirement, black court imposed requirements, of the settlement. There was a set aside of sorts at the city purchasing. Okay. And George had brought this up, to friends that used to get, there were two architects, there were one engineer, George, and several other business people that used to get together, and we would talk about that. And then the city purchasing department passed a set aside rule, okay, but that only recognized, blacks and women, because of the lawsuit of the NAACP, and they passed that for public hearing, and we saw that. I said, guys, we just been taking, whatever access we had, we've been taken out of it, So we said, what do we do? And then that's when we started Hispanic American Business Association. Okay, and we represented not only us, but also the Native Americans, and then the Indians, the Asian Americans. And then on the basis of that, we went to Warren. Warren was a very junior. I think that he had just been elected. We told him, you being black, you ought to recognize that's not fair. He said, we're going to take this thing apart. And each of us, knew just about the entire council. And that's the word that we got back to them. And they said, well, Clark, this whole thing's going to derail anyway, because in order to be able to do a set aside, there has got to be a study, for disparity, and it's going to take us about a year to do that. And it says, if you guys, hang tight, and don't agitate and, threaten and all of the things that we, had communicated to them, says, we'll go ahead and get you included. And then we agreed to do that. And that, in fact, did happen. We became active during that whole 1 year period because we did everything politically and business-wise possible, to unite the Hispanic community. Yeah, a consultant came back and did the disparity study. They went through the review, and then the ordinance was promulgated and passed.
And so I joined the Navy. I was on an aircraft carrier for 3 years, the Saratoga, which happened to be home ported here in Jacksonville, Florida. So from 1961 to 64, I was exposed to Jacksonville. And remember, the Civil Rights Act didn't come into effect till 64. Now I experienced situations at counters, and it went the gamut. There were times I would sit at a counter and there was no problem. Times where I'd be sitting at the counter and I'd feel somebody touching my shoulder, and I turn around and it's a cop and he's telling me to get the hell out. And in those days, they all had alleys with windows. And so blacks could go into the alley and order food like a takeout. I did a lot of hitchhiking in those days. We used to hitchhike from Jacksonville to Miami on weekends, just to hang out with our quote unquote our own, okay, the Cuban population down in the beaches and so forth, and so I experienced certain things. One example was in it was just south of Orlando, and I got picked up for hitchhiking. So I remember getting picked up by the policemen, and again, they were all white Southerners, and they were nasty, with the boy, and I remember he's telling me, boy, he says, you're going to be put on a chain gang. But as we're driving, he says, where you coming from? And I said, Jacksonville, Florida. What do you do there? And I said, I'm in the Navy. And he says, what ship are you on? And I said, the Saratoga. He says, my nephew's on the Saratoga. He says, so this is what I'm going to do for you, boy. Okay. I'm going to take you to the Greyhound bus terminal. I want you out of my town. I don't care what bus you take or where it's going, but you need to get out of my town. Okay. And so again, that was, an example. I can give you lots of other examples of things like that, but you just like